Breaking right now across America, the sky, the sea, and the earth itself are crying out. From a blazing gate of hell opening above Texas, to sinkholes swallowing streets in Florida and Kansas, to hundreds of whales washing ashore on both coasts, the signs are multiplying. Eyewitnesses record angelic forms descending through clouds, while in California, new UFOs flash near military bases. Meanwhile, the nation trembles. Violence, division, and spiritual decay spread like wildfire. Are these coincidences, or are heaven and earth declaring the King's return? Like, comment, and subscribe so you won't miss the next sign. Together, we'll uncover what's truly unfolding before our eyes. It began just after sunset over central Texas. The sky, once painted in gold and crimson, suddenly dimmed as if an unseen hand had pulled a curtain across the heavens. Then, witnesses say, a perfect black circle appeared hovering above the horizon, its edges pulsing with a strange silver-blue glow. For a moment, it seemed harmless, like a storm forming. But within minutes, the circle widened, deepened, and began to shimmer with what looked like fire trapped behind glass. From Dallas to Waco, people stopped their cars on highways to stare. Phones came out, social media filled with live footage. A massive, spinning black gate surrounded by lightning, clouds twisting in impossible patterns. A truck driver from Hillsboro described it as a hole in the sky, like something trying to come through. Then came the sound. At first, it was a low hum, deep and metallic, as if the air itself was vibrating. But soon it changed, stretching into long, mournful blasts that many compared to ancient trumpets. They echoed across empty fields and small towns, bouncing off silos and church steeples. Dogs howled, birds fled in wild spirals. Some witnesses fell to their knees in the streets, whispering prayers through tears. Scientists moved quickly to explain it. The official statement from a Texas observatory called it a localized plasma vortex, a rare interaction of atmospheric particles with solar radiation. But the explanation failed to calm the public. The sky had formed a perfect geometric shape, blacker than night, and it stayed there for nearly 20 minutes before fading away into mist. Pastors began quoting Revelation 9, and the bottomless pit was opened, and there arose smoke out of the pit, as the smoke of a great furnace. Was this just coincidence, or had the earth truly opened its gates above instead of below? In San Antonio, a man who recorded the event claimed to see shapes moving inside the circle, silhouettes of wings, flashes of gold and white. His video blurred as if energy distorted the camera lens. It wasn't just light, he said. It was alive. Commentators split into two camps, one shouting prophecy fulfilled, the other mocking the hysteria. Yet deep down, millions felt the same silent dread, the sense that something beyond comprehension had brushed the edge of our reality. Could this be the veil thinning, a warning that heaven and hell are preparing for the final conflict? Some say it's judgment, others, mercy. But one thing is certain, Texas will never forget that night when the sky itself opened and humanity felt the breath of eternity. Stay tuned for what happened next, because within days, the ground began to give way beneath America's feet. Only days after the Black Gate appeared over Texas, the ground across America began to tremble. At first, it was subtle, a few reports of small cracks appearing in driveways and sidewalks. But soon, the news feeds were flooded with horrifying images. Entire streets collapsing, cars plunging into sudden pits, homes vanishing within seconds. From Florida to Utah, from Kentucky to downtown Chicago, the soil itself seemed to be devouring what stood upon it. In Florida, a family awoke at dawn to the sound of twisting metal. The father rushed outside and found their front yard gone, replaced by a dark, yawning hole nearly 30 feet wide. It sounded like thunder underground, he said, and then the earth just opened. In Kentucky, a church parking lot cracked in half, swallowing several cars while the congregation was still inside worship service. In Utah, a section of desert highway dropped away, leaving a canyon where smooth asphalt had been only minutes before. Geologists rushed to explain the phenomenon, blaming unstable limestone formations, underground water erosion, or recent shifts in groundwater pressure. But the data didn't fit. The collapses were happening simultaneously, thousands of miles apart, often on solid rock where no sinkhole had ever been recorded. Satellite imagery even revealed a mysterious pattern, The holes seemed to form along a diagonal fault line stretching from the Gulf Coast to the Great Lakes, like a scar splitting the nation in two. In social media discussions, believers started connecting the dots. Just a week earlier, the sky had opened. Now the ground was following. Could this be a reflection, heaven and earth mirroring each other in signs of judgment? Pastors and Bible scholars recalled Numbers 16, where the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them, after rebellion rose among the people. The image felt uncomfortably familiar. Even more unsettling was what came next. Reports surfaced that subterranean vibrations were being detected by private research stations, movements too organized to be random. Some whispered theories of secret tunnels collapsing, or experiments gone wrong deep below government facilities. Others believed these were the early birth pains of prophecy, the foundations of the world shifting under divine pressure. By midweek, emergency crews had fenced off entire neighborhoods. Streets that once echoed with laughter now gaped open like wounds. Residents stared into the depths, black, silent, endless. And somewhere in that silence, a question burned through the fear. If the heavens had opened above Texas and the earth was now opening below, what was trapped between them? Scientists called it coincidence. Prophets called it consequence. But across the United States, an ancient unease was stirring, as though the nation itself was sinking into a judgment written long ago. The skies had opened, the earth had torn apart, and now the seas began to mourn. Within a single week, America's coastlines turned into silent graveyards. From California's Monterey Bay to the shores of New Jersey, hundreds of whales and dolphins washed ashore, their massive bodies sprawled helplessly across the sand like fallen giants. The sight was apocalyptic, enormous creatures, eyes still open, their songs silenced mid-cry. Families walking along the beaches stopped in horror as the ocean itself seemed to vomit life back onto land. Every new wave carried another lifeless form, glistening under the gray sky like offerings from the deep. Marine biologists blamed sonar pulses, toxins, and oceanic heat waves, but the explanations collapsed under the scale of the mystery, for the deaths were synchronized. From the Pacific to the Atlantic, whales were dying at nearly the same hour, across thousands of miles. Satellite data recorded magnetic distortions running along the U.S. coasts, interfering with ship navigation and animal migration patterns. It was as though the oceans themselves had become magnetically possessed. Then came an eerie silence. No gulls, no waves, no distant hum of life, just still water stretching endlessly under a pale sky. Locals described the sea as holding its breath, waiting for something. For many, the quiet was worse than the death. It felt like creation itself was in mourning. Across social media and church pulpits, one verse resurfaced again and again. Revelation 8. 9 1/3 of the living creatures in the sea died. The faithful began calling it the cry of creation, a warning echoing from the depths. Romans 8:22 took on new weight. The whole creation groans and labors in pain. But what stunned theologians most was an ancient parallel, a mystery buried beneath millennia of sand. In ancient Egypt, long before the Exodus, hieroglyphic records and temple carvings spoke of a time when the Nile turned bitter and fish died en masse, washing up upon the riverbanks. Priests of Amun called it the breath of the underworld, believing it was the god's anger rising from below. Centuries later, the Bible described the same event as one of the plagues of judgment before Israel's deliverance. Now, millennia later, the same pattern unfolds not in the Nile, but across America's shores. Could this be more than coincidence? Are the seas repeating what the ancients once witnessed, a divine warning written in water? Historians note that the death of the Nile's fish marked the beginning of Egypt's unraveling, the fall of an empire that hardened its heart against heaven's call. Is America facing its own moment of reckoning? The whales, symbols of deep creation and ancient intelligence, have become messengers of the unseen, rising to the surface one final time as if to cry, "The time is near." Scientists measure the data. The faithful measure the signs. But both see that the natural order is breaking, the air, the earth, and now the sea trembling together in one unified cry. The skies have spoken, the ground has answered, and the oceans now grieve, just as they did in Egypt, when the waters first warned of deliverance and destruction. Are we listening? If you believe these signs mean something, don't stay silent. Like, comment, and subscribe to stand with us as we uncover what's coming next, because the next sound we hear may not be the ocean's mourning, but the trumpet's call. It started in the quiet hours of dawn. Over the plains of Oklahoma, a farmer stepping outside to check his cattle looked up and froze. Above him, suspended in the rolling thunderclouds, was a radiant, human-like form, glowing white gold, wings stretching across the storm. He ran for his phone, hands trembling as lightning flared behind the figure, not illuminating it, but revealing it. Within hours, dozens of similar images flooded the internet. Across Arizona, Tennessee, and Colorado, witnesses reported seeing luminous shapes moving inside clouds, silhouettes with wings, robes, or halos of light that held their form for seconds at a time before vanishing. Airplane pilots confirmed seeing unexplainable glows at 30,000 feet, hovering motionless against strong winds. Some even claimed the figures moved against the wind's direction, as if they were standing guard over the storm itself. Meteorologists rushed to explain the phenomenon. Some called it pareidolia, the human tendency to see faces or shapes where none exist. Others suggested reflections of sunlight through layered vapor. But these theories broke down when the images were compared identical forms, seen by people hundreds of miles apart, all within the same 24-hour window. For many, the resemblance was undeniable. The glowing figures looked angelic, peaceful yet powerful, appearing at a time when America trembled beneath storms, sinkholes, and signs. And as thunder rumbled, some claimed to hear faint harmonic tones, a melody carried on the wind that felt more like worship than sound. "It wasn't just thunder," said a woman from Nashville. "It was singing soft, but full of power. I fell on my knees without knowing why." Biblical scholars pointed to Matthew 24:30. "Then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven." To them, this was not random weather, but a celestial declaration, a reminder that heaven still watches, still intervenes, still prepares for the return of the King. Yet others feared what they saw. For every voice calling them angels, another warned of deception. 2 Corinthians 11:14 declares that Satan himself masquerades as an angel of light. Could these luminous figures be false signs? The beginning of a great delusion meant to deceive even the faithful? The debate split churches and communities. Some called the appearances revival in the sky. Others, spiritual warfare made visible. But one thing united everyone who witnessed it: a feeling of awe that words could not hold. Eyewitnesses spoke of overwhelming peace followed by trembling, as if their souls recognized something ancient, a presence beyond imagination. Photographers who captured the forms found strange distortions in their images, as though light itself resisted being frozen. Whether divine or deceptive, natural or supernatural, one truth remains: the heavens have never seemed so alive. The same sky that once opened into the black gate now seemed to blaze with sentinels of light. And as the clouds shifted, glowing wings faded into the dawn, leaving behind a trembling silence and the haunting question lingering in the air: are the hosts of heaven taking their positions for what comes next? Just as the sightings of angels faded from the headlines, another wave of lights appeared, this time not shaped like wings, but machines. Over the coast of Southern California, dozens of witnesses recorded a formation of glowing objects moving silently above the Pacific. They weren't airplanes, drones, or satellites. These orbs shifted positions with mechanical precision, triangular, diamond-shaped, and perfectly synchronized. The night sky pulsed with amber light, as if intelligent eyes were watching from above. The first video came from San Diego, showing 3 bright orbs hovering motionless over the ocean. Moments later, one shot upward at impossible speed, disappearing into the clouds. In Los Angeles, hundreds of residents saw the same lights. Traffic on the I-405 came to a halt as drivers stood outside their cars, staring upward in disbelief. "They didn't move like anything I've ever seen," one man said. "It was like gravity didn't apply to them." When news outlets reached out to the U.S. Air Force, officials quickly denied involvement. No military exercises, no known flights. Yet radar systems across the region confirmed multiple unidentified objects entering controlled airspace. Even weather satellites captured their movement, bright signatures without heat trails, breaking every known rule of physics. Social media ignited. Some called them UFOs, others, the Watchers. Theories flooded in: secret technology, interdimensional visitors, or perhaps the same entities that appeared as angels only days before, now changing form. In Bible prophecy circles, people turned to Genesis 6 and Enoch 7, recalling the ancient beings called Watchers, celestial creatures who once descended to Earth, bringing forbidden knowledge before the flood. Could these modern lights be their return? Were they revealing themselves as the final deception before Christ's coming? Meanwhile, skeptics argued it was nothing more than human advancement, stealth drones, or experimental crafts. Yet deep inside military chat channels, anonymous insiders hinted at something stranger. The objects emitted electromagnetic pulses that disrupted communication systems within a 100-mile radius. "They're not ours," one message read, "and they're not from this world." For the spiritually awake, this convergence, the black gate, the sinkholes, the ocean's mourning, the angels in the clouds, and now the watchers in the sky could not be dismissed. Heaven, earth, and the unseen realm were colliding. Witnesses described a heavy stillness after the lights vanished, as if the air itself was charged with anticipation. In the silence, one could almost feel a presence, intelligent, ancient, and waiting. Are these lights a warning or an invitation? Are we standing on the edge of revelation or deception? The signs are multiplying, and California may have just seen the next chapter unfold. Stay with us, because what happens next will shake not just the sky, but the heart of the nation itself. The earth will roar again, and this time, the message will be impossible to ignore. While the heavens flashed with fire and the seas cried out, something darker was happening within a moral earthquake shaking the soul of America. Cities that once glowed with life now flicker with unrest. In New York, protests spill into chaos. In Chicago, stores board up windows as looting returns. Across the nation, divisions sharpen political, racial, spiritual, as if the heart of the country has split into warring halves. What began as natural disasters now bleeds into the human spirit. News anchors speak of economic collapse, moral confusion, spiritual fatigue. Families once united by faith now argue over what truth even means. Church attendance drops to record lows, while occult practices, tarot, and astrology rise among the young. Technology has become both idol and overseer, with AI voices replacing sermons and influencers shaping more minds than Scripture ever did. It feels as though the country is losing its center. The soil beneath its feet is not the only thing collapsing, its consciences too. The old values that built its foundations, faith, humility, gratitude, have been traded for noise and pride. Paul's words in 2 Timothy 3 echo like a mirror held to modern America. Men shall be lovers of themselves, covetous, boastful, disobedient, unholy. Some see this as the great unraveling foretold by prophets, the moment when truth would be silenced and light would be mocked. Others call it a cycle of civilization, another empire crumbling under its own weight. But what if it's more? What if the same unseen hand stirring the sky and sea is now shaking the heart of a nation? Signs of the coming system are already visible. Cashless transactions, facial recognition, microchip technology, all framed as convenience, all paving the road toward Revelation's warning that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark. The pieces are falling into place faster than most realize. Yet amid this darkness, small lights still burn. In forgotten towns, people are gathering again, praying, fasting, repenting. Outdoor baptisms rise in number. Strangers kneel together in gas stations, confessing and weeping. It's as if heaven still whispers to those willing to listen, "Return to me, and I will return to you." America stands between two paths, revival or ruin. Every storm, every tremor, every strange light in the sky feels like a question written across the heavens. Will you wake up before it's too late? Because while nations rise and fall, prophecy never sleeps. And the next wave of signs won't just test the earth, they will test the soul of every living person beneath it. By now, the pattern could no longer be denied. The sky had burned, the ground had split, the oceans had mourned, and the very air shimmered with lights no human could explain. Scientists debated data, but something far greater was unfolding, a perfect alignment of chaos, as if creation itself were responding to a single divine command. In the West, wildfires raged through California and Oregon, turning the horizon blood red. Smoke rolled over cities like a suffocating tide. In the East, record-breaking floods swallowed entire towns in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, washing away streets and memories alike. In the Central Plains, tornadoes twisted together like fiery ropes from the clouds, devouring everything in their path. And deep underground, Seismographs shuddered with new activity, earthquakes forming where none should exist. Each element seemed to echo the other. Fire devoured the forests. Water swallowed the land. Air carried strange signs and sounds. Earth trembled beneath our feet. It was as though the four elements, fire, water, air, and earth, had united in a single voice, crying out against human arrogance. Environmentalists called it climate crisis. Prophets called it the groaning of creation, foretold in Romans 8:22. For we know that the whole creation groans and travails in pain together until now. A young pastor from Kansas said it best: God is shaking every element so man can no longer trust in what he built. Not the ground, not the sky, not even the sea. His church, once nearly empty, overflowed with people desperate for answers. Across America, revival tents began rising in fields again, glowing under the same stormy skies that terrified the world. But not everyone turned to faith. Many mocked, calling it hysteria. Some claimed humans were the gods now, able to manipulate weather and control nature. Yet their voices grew smaller as the disasters intensified. Reports emerged of fire whirlwinds, tornadoes made entirely of flame, and blue lightning storms flashing over mountain ranges where no storms were predicted. Even seasoned meteorologists began using biblical language on live broadcasts. The convergence was complete. Nature's four pillars, the very structure of creation, had entered rebellion. And with each event, humanity's illusion of control crumbled further. Those who watched with spiritual eyes saw something deeper, a message encoded in the chaos. Fire symbolized judgment, water cleansing, air the spirit's movement, and earth the foundation of man. All four now warred together, declaring the same truth: the king is near. In towns shaken by storms and cities darkened by smoke, people began to lift their hands and weep, not from fear but recognition. The signs were not only warnings of wrath, but also calls to return. The world had reached the point of convergence where science and prophecy, heaven and earth, met in one thunderous declaration: prepare, for the final shaking has begun. When the final tremors quieted and the skies cleared, a strange stillness fell across the land. The fires dimmed, the floods receded, the lights in the heavens faded into dawn. Yet deep within the hearts of millions, something had changed. It was as if the world had taken one long breath, not of peace, but of realization. Humanity had seen what it had refused to see for generations: that power, wealth, and technology cannot protect the soul from divine truth. In small towns and big cities alike, people began gathering not to protest, but to pray. Parking lots became altars. Abandoned churches filled with voices again. There were no cameras, no lights, only trembling hands raised toward the heavens. Teenagers knelt beside elders. The once skeptical now whispered the words they had mocked: God, if you are real, show us mercy. This was not religion returning. It was awakening. For decades, America had worshipped progress and forgotten purpose. Now, after watching the sky open, the earth split, and the oceans cry, many realized that these were not isolated catastrophes, they were invitations. Warnings meant not to destroy, but to awaken. Scripture had long predicted such a moment. Luke 21:28 says, "When these things begin to come to pass, look up, for your redemption draws near." The command is not to hide, but to lift our gaze, to see beyond the chaos and recognize the mercy hidden within it. For every shaking carries both judgment and grace. The same God who allows storms is the one who can still them with a single word. But preparation now is no longer about storing food or building shelters. It is about the heart, a readiness not for disaster, but for encounter, to forgive, to repent, to walk in light when the world is sinking into shadow, to turn from distraction and return to devotion. Because the next great event may not come from the earth or the sky, but from heaven itself when the trumpet sounds, and every eye shall see him. Even scientists who once mocked prophecy admit privately that something beyond data is unfolding. The magnetic poles shifting faster than ever. The stars themselves pulsing in new rhythms. The universe seems to be holding its breath, and humanity stands on the edge between redemption and ruin. But for those who believe, fear is replaced by purpose. We were born for this hour not to panic, but to shine. The signs are not the end of the story. They are the beginning of the return. So while the world trembles, lift your eyes. The King is coming soon. And before that day, may we be found faithful, awake, and ready. If this message spoke to you, take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your voice helps spread truth when the world grows dark. Thank you for watching, for believing, and for staying watchful. The story is not over. The greatest chapter is about to begin. It wasn't just light, it was structured. It was a cross shining above us, and for a moment, I felt heaven had touched the earth. Others in Michigan reported pulling their cars over on the highway, staring upward, unable to believe what their eyes were seeing. In New Jersey, the same phenomenon appeared. Clouds stretching into a luminous cross, with light shafts breaking through the darkness like swords of fire. Families poured into the streets. Many fell silent. Some whispered prayers, others wept openly. One woman gasped, "It felt like God was sending us a signal. Right here, right now." Social media lit up instantly with photos and shaky videos. Some images showed the cross, glowing with a pure, almost silver-white brilliance. Others captured the light scattering into rays that looked like angelic wings. Skeptics pointed to atmospheric optics, sunlight hitting ice crystals at the right angle. Meteorologists suggested a rare form of sun pillar. Yet many experts admitted the sharp geometry of the cross was unlike typical weather events. How could random clouds align so symmetrically, then blaze with such supernatural clarity? Believers, however, saw no mystery. They pointed directly to Acts 1:11, where angels promised that Jesus would return the same way he ascended in the clouds of heaven. For them, the cross-shaped clouds and blazing light were not coincidence but covenant, a warning and a comfort all at once. The sight raises unsettling questions. Are we witnessing random weather, or are these signs of the times, flashing across America's skies? Whatever the case, the image of the glowing cross now burns in the memory of thousands. To many, it was not just weather, it was a message. Time is short, and the King is coming soon. In Burbank, California, the evening sky turned into something unforgettable. As dusk settled, the clouds began to twist and gather, forming an outline that defied natural explanation. What started as faint wisps soon solidified into the shape of a towering figure descending from above, its form etched against the fading light. Witnesses captured video and photographs, and what they revealed left countless viewers stunned. The figure seemed to possess shoulders, arms, and even a faint suggestion of a face emerging from the heart of the clouds. Then, without warning, the heavens erupted in brilliant beams of white light, slicing across the night like swords of fire. The glow was so intense that the horizon itself appeared illuminated, casting long shadows across the streets below. This extraordinary sight immediately drew comparisons to the promise in Acts 1:11, where angels declared that Jesus would return the same way he ascended, through the clouds of heaven. Many who saw the footage could not shake the sense that they were watching a living echo of that prophecy. The imagery also evoked Revelation 10:1. I saw a mighty angel coming down from heaven, clothed in a cloud, with a rainbow above his head, his face like the sun, and his legs like fiery pillars. The resemblance was uncanny, an immense figure cloaked in vapor, lit by unearthly radiance, stepping down as though crossing the threshold between heaven and earth. Social media quickly ignited with speculation. Some users called it a heavenly messenger. Others described chills running through their bodies as they watched the glowing figure move among the clouds. Several photographs showed the light refracting in such a way that halos appeared to crown the figure's head. To believers, this was no random weather, it was a sign in the heavens. Skeptics tried to explain it as atmospheric optics, sunlight or city lights hitting thin cirrus layers, producing shapes our minds interpret as human. Yet even meteorologists admitted the geometry and symmetry of the figure were unusual. Cloud formations are often abstract and fleeting, but this one seemed deliberate, as if painted by a divine hand. What made the event even more unsettling was its timing. Only days later, across Dallas, Texas, a deep, trumpet-like blast echoed over the city. It was not bells or machinery, but a low, resonant sound that rolled across the sky. For many, it confirmed what they already feared, that the skies were not simply putting on a show, but delivering a warning. Revelation 8-6 speaks of the 7 angels preparing to sound their trumpets, while Matthew 24-31 declares, "He will send his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the 4 winds." Together, the Burbank figure and the Dallas trumpet sound have left a haunting question. Are these merely natural events, or the very signs that Scripture has long foretold? For thousands who witnessed them, the answer was clear. The heavens are speaking, and time is short. Deep in the rugged slopes of the Ozark Mountains in Arkansas, a team of explorers stumbled upon something extraordinary objects, so strange and symbolic that they have ignited both wonder and dread. Hidden beneath layers of rock and soil, they uncovered a rusted sword and a sealed ceramic jar, side by side, as if deliberately placed to withstand the passing of centuries. At first glance, the sword appeared fragile, its blade corroded, eaten away by time. Yet its design was unlike ordinary weapons. Its hilt bore faint etchings, geometric patterns that seemed ceremonial rather than practical. The edges, though dulled, gave the impression of once having been polished with reverence, not battle-worn but sanctified. The sealed jar, by contrast, was intact, its clay surface hardened, its lid fused shut as if to keep something of immense importance locked within. One witness who first examined the find admitted with awe, "The sword looked more like a sacred instrument than a weapon, and the jar, it was heavy, as though it held a secret too valuable to be revealed." His words spread quickly, fueling speculation about what this unlikely pair might signify. Theories abounded. Some archaeologists suggested these could be relics of an unknown settlement in the Ozarks, a community isolated from the outside world, clinging to beliefs of cosmic upheaval and divine judgment. Such groups, history tells us, often buried their sacred possessions in hopes of preserving them for future generations, or perhaps for the final days. Could this discovery be the remnant of such a people, who live with their eyes fixed on the end of the age? For many believers, the symbolism was too precise to ignore. The rusted sword called to mind the words of Revelation 19:15. "Out of his mouth comes a sharp sword with which to strike down the nations." The apocalyptic vision of Christ returning in judgment, wielding the sword of divine truth, echoed eerily in the object dug from Arkansas soil. The sealed jar, meanwhile, resonated with Jeremiah 32-14, where the prophet instructs that deeds of covenant be placed in an earthen vessel to endure. Together, the sword and the jar carried unmistakable weight, judgment and covenant, justice and promise. What chills the heart is not merely their presence, but their timing. At a moment when the world is shaken by wars, pestilence, economic collapse, and signs in the heavens, why should these artifacts now rise from the earth? Is it coincidence that echoes of Revelation and Jeremiah have materialized in the heart of America, a land itself embroiled in turmoil? The mountains of Arkansas are not typically places of prophetic focus, yet their caves and valleys have long whispered of hidden histories. Some legends speak of ancient peoples who fled to remote places to await the end, burying their treasures with rituals of fire and prayer. Could this sword and vessel belong to such a forgotten remnant, whose fears of judgment mirror our own anxieties today? Social media has exploded with images of the discovery. Some dismiss it as a clever hoax, staged to spark apocalyptic fervor. Others, however, see it as a wake-up call from heaven itself. One online comment reads, "The earth is yielding up its secrets. God is reminding us that His covenant still stands, and His judgment is closer than we think." Skeptics argue the objects are relics of a pioneer sect or indigenous ceremony, stripped of any spiritual implication. Yet even they admit the pairing is strange. Why a sword and a sealed jar together, undisturbed, hidden as though awaiting the appointed hour? The mystery is compounded by the fact that the jar has not yet been opened. What lies inside? Dust, scrolls, relics, or something more ominous? The discovery has stirred emotions far beyond Arkansas. Preachers warn their congregations that this could be a sign of the final judgment drawing near. Others take it as comfort, pointing to God's unbroken covenant even amid chaos. Both responses stem from the same truth. The symbolism is too sharp, too exact, to be dismissed. In the Bible, God often used physical signs, rods, stones, scrolls, vessels to deliver eternal messages. Could it be that in these final days, He is doing the same again? The Ozark discovery may be more than archaeology. It may be a prophetic reminder that while kingdoms rise and fall, the sword of judgment will still strike, and the vessel of covenant will still endure. As the world watches wars unfold and the heavens blaze with signs, this unearthed pair whispers a sobering possibility that the earth itself is testifying. A sword for judgment, a jar for covenant, both uncovered at a time when humanity teeters on the edge of history's final chapter. Is this evidence of the end? Perhaps. Or perhaps it is the last warning that the judge and the covenant keeper are at the very door. Hold on a second, tap that like button, drop a comment below, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. All right, let's keep going. It began quietly, with no storm, no explosion, no warning, just a sudden rain of lifeless bodies from the heavens. In Kentucky, residents woke to a disturbing sight. Thousands of dead birds scattered across streets, fields, and rooftops. Blackbirds and starlings that once filled the sky with sound and motion now lay silent, their wings twisted unnaturally, their feathers soaked with dew. Children cried as they stepped outside their homes to find their yards carpeted with birds that had dropped without explanation. Local authorities cordoned off neighborhoods, unsure whether they were dealing with a natural phenomenon, a hidden toxin, or something darker. Meanwhile, hundreds of miles away, another calamity unfolded along the Florida coast. Fishermen steering their boats at dawn saw the ocean's surface turn pale by masses of floating fish, their bellies up, stretching for miles. The once vibrant shoreline, alive with splashing silver, had become a graveyard of white corpses bobbing in the waves. The smell was unbearable, drifting inland and forcing coastal families to stay behind closed doors. Reporters compared it to scenes from disaster films, an ecological nightmare without a clear cause. As the nation struggled to make sense of these twin tragedies, birds from the air, fish from the sea, another spectacle rose above them in the sky. On the night of Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, the moon turned into a deep, blood-red orb, casting its eerie light over cities and wilderness alike. From the Appalachians to the Gulf Coast, people stood in silence as the heavens glowed crimson, covering the land in a ghostly hue. For some, it was mesmerizing beauty. For others, it was dread incarnate. To see death on the ground and blood in the sky in the same moment was almost too much to bear. Scientists rushed to provide explanations. For the birds, perhaps a sudden atmospheric shock, fireworks, hail, or the disorienting effects of poisonous gases. For the fish, red tide, parasites, or contamination of water supplies. And for the moon, of course, a predictable lunar eclipse, caused by the alignment of sun, earth, and moon. Yet what unsettled even the most skeptical was the timing. That such phenomena converged not just randomly, but on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the Hebrew calendar, was difficult to reduce to coincidence. Even those who dismissed divine intervention admitted privately that the alignment of events felt uncanny, as though orchestrated by a hand beyond human reach. For many believers, the meaning was immediate and terrifying. The dead birds and fish were not mere accidents of nature, but symbols of a creation in distress, echoing Paul's words in Romans that all creation groans. And the blood moon appearing at the precise moment of repentance and atonement could only be a prophetic marker. They turned to Revelation 6:12, where John records his vision. The sun became black like sackcloth made of goat hair. The whole moon turned blood red. To the faithful, this was not poetic metaphor but a chilling preview, playing out on their very streets and skies. The death of creatures in air and sea spoke of a world unraveling, while the moon's bloody face proclaimed that the hour of judgment was at hand. The convergence of these signs sent shivers across the nation. To skeptics, it was eerie coincidence. To believers, it was a divine alarm clock ringing at full volume. Birds dropping from the heavens, fish dying in the seas, and the moon glowing with the color of blood together, they painted a picture impossible to ignore. In Kentucky, parents warned their children not to touch the dead animals. In Florida, fishermen prayed over their ruined catch. Across the country, people lifted their eyes to the red sky and whispered ancient prayers, asking whether God was speaking once more through his creation. One thing was certain: the earth, sea, and heavens had combined their voices in a single, dreadful chorus. Creation itself was screaming, signaling that time is running out and that the judge of all the earth may be standing at the very door. In the heart of the American West lies Yellowstone National Park, a place known for its geysers, wildlife, and breathtaking landscapes. But in recent months, this symbol of natural beauty has become a source of dread. Strange events are unfolding in the region, and they are causing both scientists and ordinary citizens to look at Yellowstone with new eyes filled with fear. It began with the animals. Rangers and visitors noticed herds of bison, elk, and even wolves leaving the park, moving in unusual patterns. Entire groups seemed to flee as though driven by an unseen force. Videos taken by startled tourists showed bison stampeding down paved roads, ignoring traffic and scattering vehicles as they charged forward. Local residents whispered in unease. Animals sense danger before humans do. What were they running from? Then came the vibrations. Seismometers scattered across the park began recording pulses and tremors, not large enough to topple buildings, but strange in rhythm. Scientists describe them as harmonic tremors, the kind often linked to magma movement beneath the Earth's crust. For those who study volcanoes, this was no minor anomaly. Yellowstone, after all, is not just any volcano, it is a supervolcano, a sleeping giant with the potential to unleash devastation on a global scale. The implications are staggering. Experts warn that if Yellowstone were to erupt in full force, the blast could eject thousands of cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere. Entire states could be buried under meters of volcanic debris. Croplands across America would be suffocated by ashfall. The skies would darken with choking dust, blocking sunlight, and plunging the planet into what some call a volcanic winter. Food supplies would collapse. Temperatures could drop drastically for a decade, creating conditions akin to a 10-year nuclear winter, but caused not by bombs, rather by the Earth itself tearing open. News outlets report cautious statements from geologists. They emphasize that an eruption is not imminent, but they admit the signs are unsettling. We cannot predict exactly when or if Yellowstone will erupt again, one scientist explained, but the recent activity is unusual and deserves close attention. While scientists weigh probabilities, many believers see the events through a different lens. For them, the exodus of animals, the trembling ground, and the potential for fire and smoke rising from the earth bring to mind the prophecy in Joel 2:30-31. I will show wonders in the heavens and on the earth, blood and fire and billows of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. The words of Joel feel hauntingly descriptive of what a Yellowstone eruption could produce. Fire shooting from the ground, pillars of smoke rising miles into the sky, and the sun blotted out by ash. Even the imagery of the moon turning red seems to match what scientists say would happen if volcanic dust filled the atmosphere, scattering light and painting the heavens crimson. For some, Yellowstone itself has become synonymous with the phrase burning mountain, a vision foretold in Revelation, where burning rock is cast into the sea, devastating life on Earth. Is it possible that this great volcano, buried beneath the soil of America, is the very instrument through which such ancient words might be fulfilled? As the tremors continue and herds of animals refuse to return, questions multiply. Are these simply natural cycles, or are they signals of something larger, something that transcends science? Could Yellowstone be a natural wonder and a divine warning at the same time? Whether interpreted as geology or prophecy, one fact is undeniable. Yellowstone is stirring, and the world is watching. Its awakening reminds us of the fragility of human life when faced with the raw power of creation. And if the words of Joel still echo across time, then perhaps Yellowstone is not just a park, but a stage set for one of history's most terrifying and awe-inspiring events. In the end, Yellowstone's silence is more frightening than its noise. Every vibration, every fleeing animal, every pillar of steam is a reminder. Beneath our feet lies fire, and if that fire breaks free, the earth itself may testify that the hour of judgment has come. Across the United States, the earth itself seems restless, as though something deep beneath the surface is stirring with purpose. In recent months, a series of earthquakes has rattled communities from California to Alaska and even as far inland as Oklahoma. None of these quakes alone reach the scale of global catastrophe, yet the sheer frequency has left citizens shaken in more ways than one. Day after day, week after week, the ground quivers, reminding everyone that the soil beneath their homes is not as stable as it appears. In California, residents in Los Angeles and San Francisco describe nights punctuated by sudden jolts. Dishes rattle in cupboards, walls creak, and light fixtures sway violently as if possessed by unseen hands. One frightened witness in the San Joaquin Valley gave a chilling account. The ground cracked right under my feet, and for a moment, I felt like the world itself was about to split apart. Fear spread quickly through neighborhoods as people ran into the streets, some clutching their children, others crying into their phones as aftershocks rolled on for hours. Farther north, in Alaska, the tremors have been even more unsettling. Known for its seismic activity, the state is no stranger to quakes, yet residents say the pattern now feels different, more constant, more insistent. Fishermen on the coast reported feeling the docks shudder beneath them, while the sea itself rippled unnaturally, as if echoing the pulse of the ground below. In Anchorage, office towers swayed, sending workers fleeing down stairwells. "It's like the land is alive and angry," one survivor whispered, refusing to sleep indoors for fear the walls would collapse on top of him. Even Oklahoma, far from any major fault line, has experienced its share of tremors. Small towns accustomed to flat fields and quiet nights now tremble under quakes that rattle windows and topple shelves. Scientists attribute many of these to fracking and human activity, yet locals insist the vibrations feel deeper, more primal. The sudden realization that the safe heartland is no longer immune has planted fear across the Midwest. Seismologists have responded with cautious explanations. They describe what is happening as part of a tectonic cycle, the natural shifting of massive plates beneath the Earth's crust. According to them, the frequency of tremors may rise and fall, but the pattern itself is not unusual. Still, the reassurance rings hollow for those who endure quake after quake, their nerves fraying as the tremors refuse to cease. For ordinary people, it feels less like a cycle and more like an escalation, a drumbeat growing louder, warning of something bigger to come. In churches, Bible study groups, and online forums, many are not content with scientific theories alone. They recall the words of Jesus in Matthew 24:7. There will be earthquakes in various places. These quakes, scattered across the map, resonate eerily with his prophecy. To the faithful, the message is unmistakable. Nature itself is crying out, warning humanity that the end draws near. What troubles many is the way the quakes seem to arrive alongside other phenomena. Blood moons, strange lights in the skies, trumpet-like sounds. When considered together, these tremors no longer appear random, but part of a larger pattern of signs. Skeptics may laugh, but even they admit that the coincidence of timing feels uncanny. The image is sobering. America's most iconic landscapes, California's Golden Coast, Alaska's icy frontier, Oklahoma's rolling plains all trembling at once, as if the entire nation were convulsing under invisible pressure. Roads crack, walls crumble, and hearts quake along with the soil. Each jolt reminds us how fragile our world is, how quickly the ground we take for granted can turn against us. For believers, this is more than geology. It is creation revolting, signaling that humanity's time is short. Just as Christ warned that earthquakes would mark the beginning of birth pains, these constant tremors feel like contractions announcing the arrival of something inevitable and unstoppable. Are these quakes simply the groans of shifting tectonic plates, or are they the groans of a planet bearing witness to the final chapter of history? As the ground shakes across America, one thing is certain: the foundations of human confidence are crumbling. And with every tremor, more voices rise to echo the same haunting question: is the end near? As strange lights blaze in the skies, as the ground trembles beneath our feet, and as signs multiply across the world, many hearts are asking the same question. Are these moments a call from the Lord, or are they snares meant to deceive? For believers, the answer often comes with trembling hope. These signs could be reminders that the return of Jesus Christ is drawing near. If so, then they are not meant to terrify but to awaken us, to stir our souls to repent, to pray, and to prepare. Every heavenly light, every trumpet-like sound, every shaking of the earth can be taken as a divine alarm, urging us to return to the God who is both judge and redeemer. Revival is possible even now, if hearts are willing to turn back before it is too late. Yet, the Bible also gives a sobering warning. Not every sign comes from God. In 2 Thessalonians and the book of Revelation, we are told that the Antichrist will arise, performing miracles, signs, and wonders to lead astray even those who appear faithful. What looks heavenly may in fact be hellish in disguise. What seems like revelation may be a deception. Jesus himself cautioned in Matthew that false prophets and false messiahs will come, showing great signs and wonders so powerful that, if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. This is why discernment is essential. The same phenomenon that drives one person to their knees in prayer may drive another into confusion or despair. If the end is near, then so is the greatest deception humanity has ever faced. We cannot assume that every spectacle in the sky is holy, nor that every trembling of the earth is sacred. We must measure all things against Scripture, holding firmly to the truth that never changes. Christ's own words in Matthew 24-44 echo through time. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. This verse holds both promise and warning. The promise: Christ will return for his people. The warning: his return will be sudden, surprising, and it will not wait for the unprepared. So the final message is clear. Stay awake, be watchful, turn back to the Lord while there is still time. The signs around us may be real, or they may be deceptive. But one truth is beyond question: our redemption is near, and we must be ready to meet the King when he comes. If you believe these are not coincidences but signs that prophecy is unfolding, then don't stay silent. Like this video to spread the message, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so more people can be awakened before it's too late. Time is short, let's stay awake together.
The government knows what is happening. Look.
Also, the FBI has received thousands of reports of mystery drone sightings. However, the agency
has said... You're not a believer, that's okay. Whoever can create the best fake alien video like this one.
A strange event in the sky has captivated and frightened onlookers, raising a chilling question. Is it the Nephilim? In a powerful and unexpected statement, Donald Trump has addressed the mystery, calling on Christians to take notice. What does this terrifying message mean, and how does it connect to America? The answers may leave you speechless. Join us as we uncover the truth behind this mysterious phenomenon and its potential impact on the future. Strange lights in New Jersey. Recently, mysterious lights have been seen hovering in the skies over New Jersey, drawing the attention of residents and stirring widespread speculation. Described by witnesses as bright, unusual, and unexplainable, the phenomenon has left many feeling uneasy and questioning its significance. The sightings have fueled numerous theories. Could this be a drone, a UFO, or something much deeper, perhaps a spiritual sign or a message from God? This strange event has sparked conversations across communities, with some suggesting it might even be linked to the Nephilim, ancient beings mentioned in the Bible. Interestingly, this occurrence mirrors the enigmatic lights spotted in the skies over Jerusalem years ago, which left both witnesses and experts mystified. Those lights, too, inspired theories ranging from advanced human technology to supernatural activity, and they remain shrouded in mystery. Could history be repeating itself, or is this a sign of something new unfolding? Wait a minute. Smash that thumbs up button for me, leave me a comment below, and share this video with your friends. Now keep going. Now let's learn about the Nephilims. What are Nephilims? Their description strongly suggests that they were beings of immense stature, possibly giants with extraordinary physical builds, known for their intimidating presence and extreme wickedness. Many scholars propose that the Nephilim were the offspring of a union between the sons of God and the daughters of men, producing individuals of incredible size and corrupt nature. One intriguing detail about the Nephilim lies in the phrase "and also afterward" in Genesis, implying that their presence extended beyond the flood. They are mentioned again in Numbers 13:33, where the Israelite spies report, "And there we saw the Nephilim, the sons of Anak, who come from the Nephilim, and we seemed to ourselves like grasshoppers, and so we seemed to them." This account confirms that the Nephilim in Numbers 13 were indeed of giant stature, as evidenced by the overwhelming fear they inspired. By the time of the flood, humanity's moral decay had reached such extremes that God described it this way: "The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And the Lord regretted that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him to his heart. So the Lord said, I will blot out man whom I have created from the face of the land, man and animals and creeping things and birds of the heavens, for I am sorry that I have made them." But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6:5-8. Genesis 6 highlights the offspring of the sons of God and daughters of men, described as giants and notable for their corrupt lineage. This passage has led to interpretations that the Nephilim were the result of unions between spiritual beings and humans. Some scholars argue that the sons of God were rebellious angels or demons, while the daughters of men referred to human women. Jude 6 sheds more light on this. And the angels who did not keep their own designated place of power, but abandoned their proper dwelling place, These he has kept in eternal chains under thick gloom of utter darkness for the judgment of the great day. This verse clarifies the fate of these rebellious angels. Overcome with lust, they cohabited with human women, producing offspring who were half angelic and half human, the Nephilim. However, God did not permit such beings to roam the earth indefinitely. The Great Flood serves as a pivotal moment, illustrating a world filled with life, yet consumed by corruption and violence. Genesis 6:5 captures this grim reality. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every intention of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. Even as humanity continued with its daily routines, corruption spread like a shadow, engulfing the earth in violence and sin. Amid this darkness, God found Noah, a righteous and blameless man in his generation. He instructed Noah in Genesis 6:13-14, "I am going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. Make yourself an ark of cypress wood." Noah must have felt the enormity of his task, to construct a massive ark in preparation for a catastrophic flood that would destroy all living creatures. The ark, measuring 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, and 45 feet high, symbolized both God's judgment and his mercy. Noah's ark, at 450 feet, was significantly larger. Its width of 75 feet dwarfed a standard basketball court, which measures about 50 feet wide. This monumental structure stood as a testament to God's plan to preserve the faithful while judging the wicked. The story of the Nephilim, their corruption, and the ensuing flood underscores the reality that God will not allow rebellion and sin to persist unchecked. Instead, he calls humanity to repentance and righteousness, reminding us that his patience has limits. The ark's size and purpose serve as both a warning and a symbol of hope for those who choose to follow God's will. Now Christmas is coming. May Christ's love and peace fill your hearts this season. Blessings to you and your loved ones. Noah, following God's instructions, gathered his family and pairs of every living creature into the ark. This massive vessel became a beacon of safety and hope as the storm began. When the rains came, it wasn't just a typical downpour. It was as though the heavens unleashed their full force. Water surged across the earth, rising higher than the tallest mountains. Every living thing on land perished, except for Noah and those with him in the ark, as recorded in Genesis 7:21-23. After 40 days and 40 nights, the relentless rain finally ceased. Slowly, the waters receded, and the ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat. Imagine it like parking a massive ship, not on a hill, but on the peaks of an entire mountain range after a catastrophic storm. Stepping out into a transformed world, Noah and his family witnessed God's promise. He made a covenant with Noah, vowing never to destroy the earth by flood again, with the rainbow as the everlasting sign of this promise. One might assume the story of the Nephilim or giants ended with the flood, but that wasn't the case. After the flood, new accounts suggest fallen angels repeated their sinful actions, although on a smaller scale. In Numbers 13:33, the Bible introduces another encounter with giants. We saw the Nephilim there, the descendants of Anak who come from the Nephilim. We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and we looked the same to them. This passage reveals that the descendants of Anak, related to the Nephilim, were known for their immense size and strength. When Moses led the Israelites out of Egypt, he sent spies to scout the promised land. Upon their return, the spies were filled with fear, claiming they had seen giants inhabiting the land. But this raises a puzzling question. If the Nephilim were supposed to have been wiped out by the flood, so how were their descendants still present in the land? Before we continue, please donate a super chat for us so we can spread this video to all people in the world. Thanks. In the Old Testament, the term most frequently associated with giants is Rephaim, a word that recurs throughout various biblical narratives. The Rephaim are first mentioned in Genesis 14, and other accounts of large groups of people appear in Deuteronomy 2:20-21. It is also regarded as the land of the Rephaim because the Rephaim previously lived in it, but the Ammonites call them Zamzummim, a people as great, numerous, and tall as the Anakim. But the Lord destroyed them before the Ammonites, who dispossessed them and settled in their place. The name Rephaim, meaning terrible ones, reflects the intimidating and fearsome nature of these individuals. These giants are also mentioned in Deuteronomy 3, where King Og of Bashan is described as a towering figure and referred to as the last of the Rephaim. His size is underscored in Deuteronomy 3:11, which notes that Og's bed was made of iron and measured 9 cubits long, 13.5 feet, and 4 cubits wide, 6 feet, emphasizing his extraordinary stature. Og, an Amorite king, ruled over 60 walled cities in Bashan, all of which the Israelites ultimately conquered. As Moses led the Israelites toward the Promised Land, Og confronted them with his army at Edrei. Because of Og's fearsome reputation and immense size, the Israelites were initially terrified. However, God reassured Moses, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands along with his entire army and his land." According to the biblical account, the Israelites defeated Og and his forces, capturing all 60 of his heavily fortified cities. These strongholds, as tall and imposing as those in Sihon, were no match for God's power. Og's defeat stands as a testament to God's sovereignty, demonstrating that even the mightiest giants and strongest armies cannot prevail against his will. Anyway, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more fascinating videos. Remember, you always have the right to express your personal opinion. Okay, back to the content. The detail about Og's iron bed serves to highlight his extraordinary size and strength, reinforcing the concept of giants in the ancient world. His story, along with other references to giants after the flood, indicates that the legacy of the Nephilim persisted through various descendants and groups. The recurring presence of giants in the Bible symbolizes the formidable challenges faced by God's people and the unwavering faith required to overcome them. A man of such extraordinary stature, requiring a bed of this massive size, was undoubtedly of immense height. Israel utterly destroyed the population and captured all 60 cities in Og's kingdom, which, like Sihon's, had high fortified walls. Yet when God determined to deliver an enemy into the hands of his people, no walls, no matter how strong, could stand against them. Later, this truth would be powerfully demonstrated at the city of Jericho. According to Deuteronomy 3:1, Og was a descendant of the Rephaim, a group associated with giants or men of great stature. His enormous bed became so renowned that it was likely preserved as a historical artifact, as mentioned in Joshua 12:4. The territory of Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of the Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth and Edrei. After Og, the biblical narrative introduces another towering figure, Goliath, the most famous giant in history. Goliath, a champion from the Philistine camp, was an accomplished warrior known for his intimidating presence and heavy armor. He wore a coat of mail made of overlapping bronze ringlets that extended from shoulder to knee. This protective armor weighed about 5,000 shekels of bronze, equivalent to 175 to 200 pounds in today's terms. Additionally, Goliath donned a bronze helmet, bronze leggings, called greaves to protect his shins, and carried a massive bronze javelin or spear slung across his shoulders. Could Goliath have been a Nephilim? Some scholars argue that Goliath, the Gittite from Gath, was part of the Nephilim lineage. Others contend that he was a Rephaim, as the Nephilim were believed to have been wiped out in the great flood of Noah's time, leaving only Noah's family to repopulate the earth. Another theory links Goliath to the Anakim, a race of giants associated with the Nephilim in the Bible. Gath, Goliath's hometown, was known as an ancient Anakim stronghold, adding weight to this interpretation. Modern scientists have proposed that Goliath may have suffered from a genetic condition, such as familial acromegaly or gigantism, potentially inherited through his lineage. This would explain his remarkable size and strength. The Bible also references other giants connected to Goliath in 2 Samuel 21:15-22 and 1 Chronicles 20:4-8. These accounts detail battles with giants believed to be either Goliath's brothers or sons. One particularly notable giant from Gath is described as having 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, a total of 24 digits. This man, also a descendant of the giants, defied Israel, but was killed by Jonathan, the son of David's brother Shem. This raises an intriguing question. If the Nephilim were destroyed in the flood, how could their descendants, such as the Anakim or Goliath's family, exist after that event? Genesis 7:23 emphasizes the flood's comprehensive destruction. He blotted out every living thing that was upon the face of the ground. So how could the Nephilim's lineage persist? This mystery has inspired a variety of interpretations, with some suggesting the Nephilim mentioned after the flood were unrelated to the pre-flood giants. Others believe that Nephilim could be a term for any large and mighty warriors, rather than a specific lineage. Another theory proposes that fallen angels once again mated with human women after the flood, creating a new generation of giants. Still, some speculate that certain genetic traits of the Nephilim may have been carried through the lineage of Noah's daughters-in-law. The question of the Nephilim's post-flood existence remains a fascinating topic, inviting deeper exploration and discussion about the mysteries of the Bible and the giants who appear throughout its narratives. Donald Trump's revelation. In a recent statement, Donald Trump addressed the unusual sightings in the skies over New Jersey that have sparked widespread speculation. Trump's remarks have drawn significant attention, particularly among Christians, as he linked these mysterious lights to the ancient beings known as the Nephilim. While the exact details of his statement remain open to interpretation, Trump emphasized the need to consider the spiritual and historical implications of such events, pointing to the possibility that these phenomena are more than just technological or extraterrestrial in nature. According to Trump, the connection between the Nephilim and the objects seen in the skies is worth examining through a biblical lens. He referenced the Nephilim as described in Genesis 6:4, suggesting that their potential appearance in modern times could be a sign of significant spiritual activity or even a warning tied to end times prophecy. This idea has resonated with many Christians who have long associated unusual phenomena in the heavens with biblical predictions about the last days. Trump's message to Christians was clear: remain vigilant. He urged believers not to dismiss such occurrences as mere coincidences, but to stay rooted in their faith in scriptures. In his view, these strange sightings could serve as reminders of the spiritual battle at play in the world today, urging Christians to pray, seek wisdom, and prepare for the challenges that lie ahead. His statement has sparked widespread discussion, reigniting interest in the biblical Nephilim and their potential role in modern events. Do you think that strange light is Nephilim or something else? Is it a drone? Leave a comment and let us know what you think. Why does God judge the people he loves? As a professor of the Old Testament, I begin my classes by asking for students' views of God. Without fail, the intensity of God's judgment surfaces. Someone always asks, if he is loving, why does God judge his people so harshly? And it's true, God's judgment can be shocking. From Scripture, we know such events as the destruction of the Canaanites, a global flood, and the exile of Israel were all ordained by God himself. In Amos, God told the nation of Israel, I sent plagues among you as I did to Egypt. I killed your young men with the sword, along with your captured horses. I filled your nostrils with the stench of your camps. Amos 4:10. When we read those words, we struggle to reconcile a loving God with one who judges his own people. We are tempted to cast our own judgment by crying out, how dare he do that? That is so wrong. But God's actions are undeniable, printed in the pages of the Bible. So how should we process these events? Before we cast God in the role of angry punisher, we should ask ourselves some questions. Who is the judge behind the judgment? When you hear the word judgment, what comes to mind? Maybe you picture a high-profile court case weighed by a jury, or even a disapproving family member with impossibly high standards. In today's environment, the word judgment carries some extremely negative connotations. We typically go out of our way to avoid being labeled as judgmental. But the Bible does not cast us in the role of the ultimate judge. That position is reserved exclusively for God. So before we ask the question, why would God? We have to begin by asking, who is God? God is not a human jury, weighed down by preconceived notions or flexible standards. He is not the disapproving family member who judges others to elevate himself. He is divinely perfect, free from the hindrances of our human failures. Our understanding of God's judgment must be grounded in the very attributes of who he is. An attribute is simply something that is true about God. From his word, we know God is three in one, self-existent, immutable, infinite, eternal, self-sufficient, omniscient, wise, omnipresent, transcendent, faithful, good, just, merciful, gracious, loving, holy, and sovereign. God is all of these and more, simultaneously all the time. If we are truly seeking to understand God's judgment, we have to unpack the character of the judge himself. When we do, we can acknowledge that God's judgment is God's, not ours. Is judgment really part of God's character? In exploring God's character, we must separate God's actions from his attributes. Judgment or wrath are not listed as attributes of God. They are not fundamental elements of God's character. Instead, they are necessary responses born of his character. In the face of injustice, a just God casts judgment. Confronted by unholiness, a holy God responds. God's responses are never random. In his judgment, God remains fully faithful, merciful, gracious, and loving. He is fully God in every moment. In Amos 4:10, God's judgment may feel extreme. The language is strikingly vivid, but God's extreme measures in verse 10 are in response to the people's extreme sin. Through Amos, we know that the people worshiped false gods, rejected God's law, and exploited, even crushed, the poor and needy. Faced with the wreckage of human sin, God responded. True to his character, God delivered justice for the poor and needy. He remained consistent, doing what he said he would do, and through it all, he extended mercy to the guilty. Throughout Amos 4, God repeated the refrain, "Yet you have not returned to me." In his grace and compassion, God called the people back to himself again and again. God's purpose in judgment was not destruction, but reconciliation. His motivation was not revenge, but compassion. He wasn't wielding his power and justice merely as punishment, but as invitation. In every ounce of rendering judgment, God calls to his people, "Come back to me." His perfect character never wavers. Does God take his judgment too far? We may accept that God's character is perfect but still struggle when his judgment feels extreme. Why does God judge the people he claims to love? On the surface, we may believe that a God without judgment is a God of love. But when we really consider the evils of this world, no one wants a God who simply looks the other way. Just ask the parent of a child who has been abused or the spouse who has been widowed through an act of violence. No one wants a God who casts the victim aside and looks at a perpetrator saying, "We need to be a little nicer." That is not loving. When we see the evils of this world, we want justice. We want a God who is both gracious and just, a God who judges evil even while he offers grace to the perpetrator. We want loving justice and love that is just. As humans, we are simply too flawed to offer this perfect blend of love and justice. It is impossible. Only God can accomplish that work. And in his mercy, he did so through Jesus' death on the cross. God's ultimate judgment for humanity's evil rained down, not on us, but on himself in the person of Jesus. In that moment, he was condemned so that we might live. God's perfect love and perfect justice collided, resulting in eternal grace for those who believe. So perhaps God is challenging us to ask a new question. Instead of why does God judge the people he loves, maybe we should ask, can I trust the one who judges? When we reflect on his full character and honestly seek to know him, we discover that he alone can deliver true justice, and he does so in perfect love. Since we have now been justified by his blood, how much more shall we be saved from God's wrath through him? Romans 5:9. Reading my other articles, you might be wondering, if not on Jesus, then where is God's wrath and judgment poured? Are we not compromising something about God's justice here? I hear you. I also shout penalty at the TV screen when the opposing team has a foul on the striker, hoping that the referee will make a fair and just decision. And biblically speaking, did God not declare that he is slow to anger, Exodus 34:6, and that he visits the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and the fourth generation, Exodus 34:7. In opposite with hyper grace, God is not soft on sin as he demands penalty for sin. He will by no means clear the guilty, Exodus 34:7.